are listening live to the Maize and Blue Reviews. Good afternoon, Michigan football. And it's great to be with you. Jerry Diorio, the former Wolverine, current high school football coach, back in the mix, and he's ready to go here on a football.
Well, that's a good one, Denny.
Football Friday, because tomorrow it starts, even though it's week 0, and then a week from today, we know that it's Michigan, but we got the Labor Day weekend games, which start on Thursday. A lot of people have been counting all this down, and now it's so close, Jerry, you can taste it.
It's here, Denny. It's here. We first of all, it's great to be a Michigan Wolverine. Just real excited about this show to really address some things. I mean, Denny, they're sleeping on Michigan, and boy, I think they're sleeping on the wrong team this year.
Sleeping on Michigan. You know, I said that you're back in the coaching game. You are. You're back coaching high school. You coached for a long time, and then you took I don't know. Did you take a year off, and now you're back?
Took a year off. Denny, when I retired from public education, there was a rule that I had to stay out of education altogether for 10 months. And that was one of the reasons I didn't coach last year, is because I was not really allowed to, with the exception of parochial schools. And so and believe you me, Denny, I was all right. Not pounding, not grinding last year. I was okay. It wasn't a bad gig, but this year I got a call, and the juice is flowing, and I'm with Tyrone Spencer, formerly of MLK at East Kentwood High School. Had a scrimmage yesterday against Detroit Catholic Central. I should say Novi Catholic Central now. Beautiful campus. Gorgeous campus. And a lot of fun. Just working with young men is such a great joy, great pleasure. Just so honored to do it. It really is fun. I love it.
Well, I'm glad to have you back doing something that you love. We love having you here talking about Michigan. You know, it's kind of the same thing. I mean, you love coaching high school. You've played at Michigan. You love talking about Michigan. So these are things that you love to do. The Big Ten Network have stopped by practice, and we'll give our thoughts there about what the guys were saying and who they talked with and our impressions there. We do have the start of the season right around the corner, which is never a bad thing to emphasize. And while the Big Ten Network was in, Jerry, they had Jake Butt, who's a member of their staff, and he had a few things to say about Michigan. That's where we're going to start. But first, we do have this breaking news. I want to tell everyone that now is, with a kickoff a week from tomorrow, this would be an excellent time to join up the Maize and Blue Review by going to michigan.rivals.com. We have put together some things that we were thinking about for fall with Jerry and Jim Scarcelli, who you hear on Wednesday. Hopefully we'll be on the Den, the posting board each week, talking about Michigan and talking about football and our own dedicated thread. So we look forward to that. You can get involved with that by going to michigan.rivals.com. We'll have the pod, but you got synergy online through the pod. It all connects, and that's good. So we look forward to that. This was not something that anybody was looking forward to. Nathaniel Marshall, Michigan's commitment, the edge rusher out of Illinois, and a real good one, he flips to Auburn this week. Now, Jerry, somebody just told me that Auburn gave Marshall $10,000 just to visit, and that they're giving him $500,000 to go and play football down in Auburn. What can you say when you lose a guy like this?
We're in a new era, Denny. We are definitely in a new era. I think I mentioned this before. You're talking about 17, 18-year-old kids, 19-year-old kids, and they're getting treated like they're some kind of king. Like they're like everybody is all on them. And this is what kind of happens. And then when you start throwing the money into the mix, families get involved, uncles, aunts, moms, dads, grandmas, grandpas, everybody's involved now. They're all going to be experts. And they're going to influence the young man as well. We lost him to Auburn. That's not to say we can't get him in a couple years, and maybe Auburn might have spent unwisely. I like what Michigan does with the NIL. I'm not sold on giving incoming freshmen that kind of money when they haven't proven themselves yet. They haven't proven that they could do anything on campus. Remember, this kid's got to go to school. He's got a whole new array of things that he's got to deal with. A nice, warm climate with a lot of pretty girls out there trying to influence him. A lot of other influences out there. He's got to go to school. That's what these young men are facing when they go into college. And so, I understand that Marshall, you think about it, Denny. Somebody gives you $500,000. You're going to seriously consider it, aren't you?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things that if you just look at how, since NIL is open, I can criticize Michigan. You could criticize Michigan, but what they've done on the field and what they've done with their players, they've hit a home run. So, you got to take a look at just what's happened in the NIL era. So, it's easy for me to say, yeah, I'd like to see them pay some higher rated recruits and get them in here. Your point about you can get them on the backswing, after a year. You can always, dip into the transfer portal. People that are worried about it, that when it started out, people were worried that Michigan was not going to be able to get into the transfer portal because of the grade situation and being reluctant to, but they seem like they figured that part out, and they're targeting certain players and they're getting them in here. There's going to be some flips. There's going to be some flips, to Michigan. There's going to be some flips to other teams. So it's, you got to ride it out. It's tough. You don't like losing guys like this. Free agency, almost in my lifetime, watching free agents in the pros, and that's what this is now. It's pro and college football mixed together. But almost every professional athlete that's a free agent goes for the biggest money and the biggest guaranteed money and the biggest upfront money. So this is where we're at.
Denny, when I was going through the process of trying to make a pro football team, and I equate this a little bit. I think there's a little bit of similarity there. I had the biggest offer to go to Denver as a free agent as opposed to the Dallas Cowboys. And I chose Denver because of the money. And what I found out was Denver had pretty good offensive line and had a lot of depth. And I made it to the last cut. That was fine. But I think I might have been able to make the Cowboys team in that situation. And so, and that's what I'm talking about. These are young men. These are families that are making decisions. They're looking at the numbers. They're not necessarily looking at the entire big picture. And so when, let's look at Texas A&M a few years ago with Jimbo Fisher. That was the highest paid football team in college football history at that point in time, was it not? And look what it got him. It got him a lot of losses, a fired coach, and a not so very good program at this point in time. So there's nothing to say we can't get this young man in a couple years. When he's been developed, he's gone through the trials and tribulations of college life. He's adapted to it, and now he's ready to focus on what's really important to him. And there's just, like you said, Denny, this is pro football free agency. That's what it is. I mean, it's just that way.
Well, the proof is what's going to happen on the field and with your record. And Michigan has, the last 3 years since NIL has been going on, it's been a part of it. Transfer portal, NIL, it's part of it. They've rung the bell. They're doing great. I mean, they're the champs. So I say that when Michigan, if they're not doing well on the field, there's going to be a lot of people that say they got to start paying players more. Until that point, let's see. They've done up to this point. it's easy for me to say. It's like, I've got a friend who's a Yankees fan. He says, we'll just go buy somebody else. We'll just go get another starter. We'll just, we paid Aaron Judge $500 million. We're going to pay Soto $600 million. I mean, he doesn't care. He keeps talking about $500 million, $600 million. They want to pay in 2 years. They want to go after Tarek Skubal and give him $500 million. It's like, you just keep doing that. But when you're,
and they're the first, and some of these people are the first to say they get too much money for playing a game.
We don't think they get, it's a big business, big money out there. So I don't know what if everything's fine with Michigan and recruiting until it's not. And right now it's fine. So that's my stance on it. I do want to tell everybody the adjustment in the rankings. There has been an adjustment with Michigan just 2 days ago. They had moved all the way up to 17 commitments, and they were ranked number 13 on rivals.com. Now with the subtraction of Marshall, 16 commits, and they are ranked number 16. Easy to remember. 16 commitments, ranked number 16 by Rivals. So there we go. Let's before we move on, let's see. We asked for people, for their feedback, and we'll see if anybody had to jump in and had any thoughts on what was going on with.
Denny, it's funny when I was a freshman coming in, we weren't even ranked. Our recruiting class was not even ranked. We were just coming. Michigan was just coming off a bad year, lost in the Gator Bowl. And here we come, and here it is, new freshman group. We weren't even ranked, and by the end of it, we're 8th in the country with one of the best rushing offenses in the country. So, a lot of these experts take them for what they are.
I'll take your word for that, Jerry. Let's go to with the Big Ten Network being in town. There are some interesting things that they were talking about. And of course they've talked about the quarterback and what's going to happen there. And they talked about the offensive line. And I like the one point Jerry, and I want to call it Diorio and Donardo. I'm like getting it,
Nice buys on.
A little bit mixed up there, but Jerry was from the Big Ten Network. He thought that Michigan's offensive line was going to be okay. When they went to Jake Butt, I thought he was going to pull out some analytics but Jake Butt said he just closed his eyes and he heard the pads cracking, and he said he knew that this was going to be an okay offensive line. Now, I don't know, Jerry, was he trying to be funny? Is there something to that? Do you believe, as somebody who's been down there, always on the practice field? I know I was just talking about baseball. Sometimes I close my eyes, I hear that crack of the bat. I can tell that it's gone a long way. What about down there on the offensive line? Is there a certain sound that you're looking for?
How many people have said it? Man, you heard those pads cracking all the way up into the bleachers, okay? You hear that? When it's a good football team or a good game, people say that. Man, we were hearing the cracking all the way up in the bleachers.
Yeah.
And so, I can understand what Jake is saying. We're going to be a very physical football team, especially up front on both sides of the football. And that's when you're going to hear the cracking sounds. When you see a great defensive line going against a great offensive line, you're going to hear some cracking. And that is a great sound to hear coming in, not knowing what to expect from the team. I mean, you have an idea, but you come in for the first time in the fall, see him practicing or listening to him practice, and you hear the cracking, you hear the intensity. That's a good sign. That's a very good sign. I can appreciate what Jake is saying there.
What about tell me about the sleds, the practice sleds, Jerry? I go down to some of the pro practices, and you see sometimes the guys just come up and they just push them. They're making a little sound. I wonder if you put some WD-40 in there, if they would make the sounds. But I don't know. There's just kind of a similar sound, but sometimes they're drive blocking it, all over the field. Sometimes they're just coming up and hitting it a little bit. Tell me a little bit about the practice sleds. If you were watching, I'll just ask you a question about it. So it's just giving you it's just random. Tell me about sleds. If you were just watching players, an offensive line, go through the drills and hit the sled, do you think you could come out with a pretty good determination on whether they were a good line or not?
I'm going to see how their feet are. I'm going to look at their feet. I'm going to look at their body position. How are they too high on the sled? Are they moving it? Okay, and those are the two things I'm going to look for when I'm a coach and I'm coaching the offensive line. I mean, we implemented the sled. I don't want to say every day in practice, but it was pretty doggone close, and that's a way to get in shape while you're practicing. And I was one of those coaches that preached downhill football, preached downhill running, and getting movement on the offensive line. And the sled was something that, I mean, that's something we worked on routinely during the season, at least once or twice a week. And it got our offensive line in shape. Heck, I used to put the receivers and running backs on there and quarterbacks just to run them and get them in shape and get them hitting. So yeah, that's what I'm looking for on the sled. Are we moving it? Are we moving it pretty quickly? Are our pad levels low? And so and that's something that's always been inbred at Michigan football.
Jerry, is this some sort of secret about that? You know, that little mat that they have behind the benches? It's got like some circles, maybe some squares, maybe some numbers in there. It's about as small as a twister mat. And I always thinking, I don't know, I've asked people before, and they're like, yeah, that's I don't know if you're getting your splits or what for one person. Do you know what I'm talking about? What is that all about?
I think what you're talking about, Denny, is some of these mats where you're making sure the personnel is ready to get on the field. And so you might have punt team hot. And so the coordinator is going to say, okay, punt team hot. And I'm not talking about on third down. I'm talking on first and second down as well. They're getting that punt team ready. So we know that when we go out on that field, we're not going to have to take a timeout or take a penalty because somebody's missing. And so that's what I think that's what you're I think that's what you're talking about right there, Dan.
Yeah, I always see it over there. I thought it was just for the offensive line, but it makes sense that it's for everyone. But, they all can't go over there. I thought maybe it was just one person that is using some sort of the mat to get their feet right or something. I mean, I never had a good explanation for it. I thought somebody told me that it was to get alignment or something, but I don't know. It was a long time ago, and obviously I don't remember.
Well, I think that's more for personnel getting our team, getting our special teams, even our defenses and our offenses right.
All right, that makes sense to me.
Okay, now Mark, I can appreciate that pushing a sled or tank, huge hit exercise. What Mark is talking about, I believe, is high intensity training, and I can definitely appreciate that. We used to incorporate that. I used to try to incorporate high intensity training in our football programs as much as possible, which is negatives when you're going up slow and going down slow, and it's constant pressure, bands working it, constant pressure, and it was a great way of getting in shape. And yeah, Mark, that was a huge part of it. High intensity training. That's what we did at Michigan when I was in college football, playing college football with Mike Gittleson. That's what we used to do. High intensity training.
Jerry, I heard Donovan Edwards on the Big Ten Network, and he sounded great going through everything. And, they asked him about Tony Alford, who comes up from Ohio State, and he was really excited and talking about what Tony was bringing to the table. And he also mentioned Fred Jackson. And I can recall back in the day, Fred Jackson, and I think it's a Michigan thing. Maybe all football teams do it, but you'd be one to ask. Fred Jackson talked about, is it 6 points of the ability to be able to hold the ball? I don't know, with your different ways. You know what I'm talking about? The 6 points of emphasis or something when you're the way you want to carry the ball.
I think Tiki Barber was one that really kind of he was high and tight, ball on the index on the point, high and tight, and if we remember correctly, Tiki kind of had a little an issue fumbling the ball. And that was one of the things he did to correct it. And so I'm not sure about the 6 points, Denny. I know the 1 point, finger.
It might be less than that. I was just throwing it out there. I forgot myself.
Index finger on the point of the ball, maybe 3 fingers on the strings, the other point in the elbow, something like that, but always high and tight. And yeah, Tiki Barber, I mean, he should have patented that thing, because he could have made a lot of money on that statement.
Who was it? Who are the running backs in your era there? We talk about Stan Edwards. Who else are we looking at?
Oh, we had some great ones. I was blessed to block for some awesome running backs. Stan Edwards, Butch Woolfolk, Larry Ricks, my buddy, 10 yards of Kerry Smith, Rick Rogers. Who else? Mercer was in there. Gosh, who else was in there? Well, I was very blessed to have to give the opportunity to block for those guys. They were fantastic, and they made you look good. I mean, Anthony Carter. One of my best blocks was up at Michigan State, and this tells you a little bit about athletes and ball carriers and what they can do for their offensive line. Everybody talks about the offensive line's got to make the running backs look good, and that is very true in my opinion. I believe that thoroughly. But when I got to Michigan, I started seeing where backs could make offensive linemen look good, and so we ran a reverse with Anthony Carter, and here I am with Bank. I think it was Banks. Remember what was his name? Carl Banks from Michigan State. We're out there one-on-one in the middle of the field. Everybody's eyes are on us. Anthony makes a little stutter steps. Banks falls for it, and I fall into a heck of a block. And that's how backs set up running linemen too.
I love it. Well, Jake Butt said he could hear the pads crack. What other, Jerry, is somebody who's, been right down there close to the ball, played, been in Michigan Stadium, coaching all these years. Are there other sounds that you would say that you enjoy from football?
The fight song after a victory. Absolutely. That's one of my favorite sounds of my football memories. Yeah. The
crack. You guys run to the corner back then, or
we didn't do that. We didn't do that. I think we did one game against Iowa when Bob Bergeron hit a last-second field goal, drove it through the uprights. I think we went down to the student section then, but I don't remember doing it every game. No.
Yeah, the band, we could probably talk an hour about the band. I like the PA announce, whether it was Howard King back in my day and your day or Carl Grapentine, both of those guys, you're at Michigan Stadium. The way they just, wherever it is, good afternoon, they hit it, band, take the field, they're telling you. And that band coming out there, that's, it makes, I love pro football, but the college football, the sounds with the band. And I don't know, you're right about the song after a victory. How could I say anything better than that? I don't even know what the song is, but when everybody's going like this, da, 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 and that one, I could sit there and watch.
That's the old Blues Brothers song there, Denny.
That's what it is.
That's the old Blues Brothers. Okay. Yeah.
All right. Now that you say it, I'm with you. I thought it was called, I didn't know what it was called, but I love it. So I could watch that on replay.
By the way, I want to mention your shirt on Wednesday. That was a beauty.
Oh, thanks. Thanks. My wife got me that shirt. So
that was a beauty, man. I like those shirts.
That's where we're at right there. How can you top the band or the PA sounds? All right. Dave Rebson, who was anchoring the coverage from the Big Ten Network, he was sitting there at the panel, and he just he didn't have anybody say, well, what about the offense? He said Michigan won the national championship last year because of their defense. And nobody said, no, well, the offense was pretty good. It was just like, okay, I don't know. Do you agree with that, Jerry? And if so, I think Michigan might have a championship defense this year. So, how much of that offense, and then, if Michigan won the national championship largely on the backs of their defense last year, and I mean, what's it say about this year? I know there was kind of a couple questions squeezed in there together.
Well, I think they're all good questions too, by the way, and they're all good statements. Here's something to think about. At East Kentwood, we're doing our goals for our offense this year, and so we're looking at it, and we're trying to compare it to the Chiefs, and Michigan. And, we were talking about third down conversion. And if we remember correctly, throughout the first part of the season, Michigan was one of the best teams on third down conversion, and completing long third down conversions. Consequently, we looked at it and we said, okay, we're going to put our goal at 40% third down conversion. That's a big number. Third down, and because we saw Michigan at 42 and Kansas City at 40 or 41, something like that. So we said, okay, we're going to be right there with them. We're going to go 40% of our third down conversions. When we look deeper into it, Michigan was under 30, I believe, last 4 or 5 games of last year. And that tells you what the defense really meant to last year's team. I mean, our offense, when we think about what we did against Iowa, we were lucky to get out of there with a win. And the big play was Samaj Morgan on the punt return. And that kind of broke the game open. But our offense was not something to write home about and celebrate how great it was. No, nothing like that. And the same thing could be said about Alabama. Ohio State, we were good enough to win. Penn State, we were good enough to win. Maryland, we were good enough to win. That's what our offense did last year. They were good enough to win the big games. Our defense set the table. And that's something that really cannot be denied, that our defense was really that good last year. And when you look at the defense and who's returning on that defense, I mean, I'm talking, I don't see any way, personnel-wise, I don't see any way Michigan can't be ranked as one of the top 3 defenses in the country, if not number 1. And with that said, that's why I've been so high on Michigan. That's why I think people are really sleeping on Michigan. I'm hearing reports out, we might be 24, 30 deep on the defensive side. When you look at the 2 deep, PowerPoint that you brought up the other day, Denny, all those names, they could play for 90, 95% of the Big Ten teams right now. Any one of those names that you put up there could probably play for 90% of the Big Ten teams. And that's not hyperbole. I think we're that deep and that loaded on defense. And when you couple in a defensive coordinator like Wink Martindale, who's going to now, I believe, take this defense and expand it. And I think he's going to come after people. And from the reports I'm hearing, he's been coming after the offense. And that's going to make our offense better. Our offense is going to learn how to pick up these blitzes and stone these teams that try this stuff. But I think our defense is, in my opinion, our defense is why I'm putting us up so high and why I think people are making a huge mistake sleeping on Michigan.
Jerry, if we were in a meeting room with Wink and you said, hey, Wink, why change something if it's been working with the Michigan defense for the last 2-3 years? First with Mike McDonald, then Jesse Minter. And I know this was Wink Martindale's defense. Why do you have to put your wrinkles in it? Or, you change every year. Everybody gets a look at you. So you have to do things. Let me see if I could ask a straight question to you. Is it a good thing that Wink Martindale is going to be more aggressive than Michigan has been on defense the last couple of years?
Time will tell on that one, Denny. But I will say this, and I think Scar made a great point on Wednesday. USC, I believe, hired the old defensive coordinator from Minnesota, who, by the way, was ready to get fired, right?
Michigan
so USC hires him, and they bring in the guy from Rutgers. Minnesota brings in the guy from Rutgers.
Yeah, all right.
Okay, all right. And Scott made a great point. Yeah, this guy knows the offenses, but everybody knows his defense as well. And so
Michigan State brought in the Minnesota guy, and USC brought in the UCLA guy.
Yep,
That's
yep, exactly. That my
right.
bad, my bad.
That's all right.
But that's
No,
what I'm
it still
saying.
holds true.
What's that?
It holds true what you're talking about, though.
Well, and what I'm saying is, Wink is coming in now. Yeah, it's the same thought process. It's the same tree as the other two guys, but now you're getting this more aggressive scenario from the Minner McDonald era with their defensive coordinator. I mean, this is the guy who taught them the defense. So now this defensive coordinator is going to add something to Michigan's defense that people have not seen, and they're going to have to prepare differently for our defense. And when you're preparing an offense against a number one defense, that's hard enough. Now you've got to change some things, and you got to prepare for all this aggressiveness. Time will tell, but I think we're sitting in a pretty good sight.
Let me ask you some quick hitters, Jerry. Sherrone Moore will address the media for the first time as a head coach on a game week on Monday. He's going to get asked who's going to be the starting quarterback. What do you think he's going to say there? Do you think he's just going to say, what time's the game? We'll see then.
What did you tell me about Lloyd?
Lloyd used to say, what time's the game? And then they would say, well, we'll all see then. Is there any, if it's Alex Orgy, maybe he'll just come out and say it. I mean, I'm just asking you, if you were the head coach and you just know how Michigan is, do you think that we'll hear an announcement about who's going to be the starting quarterback on Monday? What's your guess there?
I think he's gonna. I think he's gonna support Orgy. I think he's gonna come out and say he supports Orgy, and he's gonna say Orgy's our starting offensive quarterback. And I think it's a smart move because we are going to be a young offense. And what does a young offense really like doing? They if we can run the ball, that's going to get us some confidence. And with the running quarterback, I think that helps. So. That's where I think we're going to be. I think he's going to support Orgy, and he's going to talk about Orgy winning that position.
I would like that if I was a Michigan fan and I heard Sherrone Moore come out Monday and asked about who's going to be the quarterback, and he said Alex Orgy is going to be our starter. I would be excited about that if I was a Michigan fan. I think the players would all be, of course, Orgy and everything. You know who the guy is. Everybody rally behind him. He's going to be the starter. Now at Michigan, there's a long standing. I mentioned Lloyd. I feel like Bo or Mo could have said the same thing about, we'll see the competition. We'll see who takes the first, and it's just like doing that to, I don't know if it's a positive for the team. If they really do know it's Alex Orgy, just come out and say it. Now, if they're thinking about what was revealed during the Big Ten Network in there, they said, look, Tuttle, I forget exactly how they said it, but he wasn't dressed. They made it sound like he was injured. They also made it sound like he wasn't going to be available for the opener. A lot of people thought, hey, it could be Tuttle. So now are we saying, oh, it's not going to be Tuttle? Are we thinking that it could possibly be Davis Warren that could be in there? All of that, I don't know. You can say it doesn't matter or anything else. I would be more nervous if I was a Michigan fan if Sherrone Moore came up there and tried to be coy about who a starter was and said, well, just wait and, see how things play out this week. That's going to make me seem like they're rotating quarterbacks. They don't have the trust in their starter, that they're playing games here. I mean, all those things. I don't know if any of that matters, but that's how I feel.
Denny, when Lloyd used to say that, remember, I think he was saying that with Drew Henson and Tom Brady fighting it out for a quarterback position. So, I mean, you're talking about two pretty doggone good quarterbacks who had a lot of experience at Michigan, who who played some football and were good quarterbacks. I think we're going to hear Sherrone support Orgy and give him confidence and give the offense confidence and let's go and win the first game against Fresno.
I understand if there's an injury. If I said, hey, how's Jack Tuttle doing? You say you might be working through something. We'll see on Saturday. That's what I would say too. I get that part. Scar, when I talk with him, he seems to be really big on game week preparation. And I feel like if Scar was up there, he would say, we're going to see which quarterback we play, because that, I think, to Scar feels like that he's telling Fresno State that they got to prepare for Davis Warren now. And they have to prepare for not only a runner in Orgy, but they also have to prepare for a passer. And there's only so many snaps during game week. What about that argument that it was Sherrone might be thinking about? Yeah, I'm going to do this because it's going to be something that they're going to have to prepare for.
Oh, absolutely. That's the fundamental answer. It's wait and see on Saturday. Buy your ticket and find out when you get here. That's the standard answer, and that's the reason. Make these teams prepare for everybody else. But when you have two young quarterbacks like this, I think unless he's telling the team, hey, listen, no matter what I say in the media, don't listen to it. I'm just bullshitting them. Excuse my language. Orgy's our starter, but I'm going to say we got 3 or 4 quarterbacks that might start the game on Saturday. So my thing is, some way, he's prepared this team for Alex Orgy to be the starter against Fresno.
Well, I would say I hope so. I feel like now is the time. You can play all the games you want now. They're out of the submarine. He's going to be standing in front of everyone, and why not say this is our guy? If he really is the guy. I mean, if there really is something else, like, man, Warren, I think we're going to have a package for Orgy, and he'll start, but Warren's getting the second series. I mean, if they're coming up, maybe, I don't know. I'm not going to call it cockamamie, maybe, because I don't know. Maybe it'll work. It's maybe they really believe in it. When I go down there Monday, my questions are going to be, how much do you believe in rotating quarterbacks? And what about all the naysayers of down through history? That's going to be my question. But unless he comes out and says, Alex Orgy's our guy, and you'll see number 10 under center, he'll be leading Michigan out of the tunnel. Well, then, you're not going to hear me asking questions about philosophically, how do you feel about you put a guy into the second series? What about momentum for a quarterback? If you have one guy play one quarter and then you're having somebody else come in, aren't you telegraphing if you bring Alex Orgy in and you get down to the red zone, what you plan on doing, even if you have a wrinkle in there or not? I think those are all fair questions. And I don't know what Sherrone Moore is thinking about all that.
I'm one of these guys that, everything's on the table. What Sherrone does on Monday, he's telling the team, hey, listen, don't listen to what I'm saying to the media. They're not there. He's going to be somewhat truthful, but he's going to be hedging his bets with the media. That's my prediction.
I like your prediction, and I'll get a final.
And I think he's going to say Orgy. So
I hope you're right about that. Here's a statement from who says, I just can't be as excited as I was with JJ. Now, you might see that as a Michigan fan and be like, this guy, take off. I understand that. I understand JJ is one of the most popular players in Michigan football history. And you love him so much. When he hurt his knee, I mean, you took it probably worse than he did. I get that. Jerry, it reminds me of something that you said earlier. You were talking about Anthony Carter. When I grew up, I remembered Rob Lytle, but not really. But, I would have said he's my favorite running back at Michigan or my favorite player. He was the first one I really remember. But Anthony Carter was larger than life. He was everything. He was Superman. I loved Anthony Carter more than anything in the world when he played at Michigan. And I remember, being, I don't know, whatever, 9 or 10 years old and, crying to my dad about, why can't he stay around? He said, well, this is the way it works. And then I always wanted to, if I ever get to interview Bo, I was going to have to tell him just how much I loved Anthony Carter, and probably people told Bo that all the time. And when it finally happened, when I interviewed him and I said, oh, Bo, I cried, like a little baby when Anthony Carter left, because I just didn't think. And you know what Bo said, Jerry?
What's that?
So did I. So did I. So, I think that everybody feels what you're saying, about JJ. I mean, everybody loves JJ McCarthy, but that's football. You can't keep guys around forever. And, JJ had 20 million reasons guaranteed to go. And I'll say I'm glad that he went now. If You don't know if he'd have been hurt if he'd have stayed at Michigan, but could you imagine 3 weeks ago if the news came out J.J. McCarthy, hurt his knee? That would have cost him who knows how much money. So,
well, let's think about that, Denny. I mean, you remember the first question with the Big Ten Network: can defense take you to a national championship? Remember, JJ hurt his knee against Penn State, or hurt his ankle against Penn State. Very immobile against Maryland. Very immobile against Ohio State. So that there's your reinforcement of the defense.
Correct. Yeah, that's a good point, Jerry. Jerry, you got good points all over. I can't wait till next Friday. It's really busting at the seams on the eve of the opener. Do you have a final thought?
No, I love our defense. I think we're going to be 24 to 30 deep. I think there could be a 30-man rotation on that defense. I really do. I honestly do. When you bring up those names that you brought up the other day, you're looking at some premier players that are 2 and 3 deep. And so, I think our defense is going to be very fresh. I think it's going to be very aggressive. And I think it's going to be very dominant up front. And, that's where I'm at with this team. That's where I'm at with this season. I think people are sleeping on Michigan big time. And I think our defense is going to be better than last year.
Well said, Jerry. I'm looking forward to talking with you next week. And, game week Monday, it's all here. All the stuff that we've been talking about all off season. It's been a lot of fun and everything else. But once Saturday night, we take everything, throw it out the window and start anew. And that's a great part of it. So
all the talking stops.
Yeah, looking forward to talking with you. Also looking forward to communicating with you over on the Den on the Maize and Blue Review.
I'm so looking forward to this season, Denny. I'm very excited. I had a great time doing it last year, and I'm so looking forward to doing it this year. And I don't see any drop off especially on the defensive side.
Well, that'll do it, Jerry. Have a great week. Thanks everybody for watching, and we will see you over on the Den.
Hail to the victors.
That's what I was waiting for. There he is, Jerry Diorio, joining